I think Tommy Robinson's probably going to be okay without my endorsement, to be honest. You know, he's got a very big following, much bigger than mine. He and I have been going at each other for as long as I can remember. You know, he's called me a lot of names too. But, you know, we're all big boys, aren't we? I mean, I don't think I need to apologise to him. I'd quite happily...
Would you debate him?
Maybe.
I'd like to host that.
Okay. But I don't see... part of me, I get this a lot, and people go, why don't you just debate him? And he said it as well. Why don't you debate me? I don't debate about what exactly? You know, because we're not actually that far apart on some of the things that we think. He's just called me an arsehole and a scumbag 2 or 3 times, and apparently I was supposed to apologise to him. I don't need... I wouldn't ask him to apologise for that. You know, let him carry on.
Developing today, a growing row on the right over Mike Graham, the axed Talk TV presenter, going independent, with a divide between loyal Talk supporters and Tommy Robinson fans who say Mike Graham has not yet had a come to mama moment about his previous criticism of the Unite the Kingdom activist. Now, Paul Thorp is obviously a close ally of Tommy Robinson, already operating in the independent media space. And when I sat down for this exclusive interview with Mike Graham, Paul wanted me to put a very direct question to Mike Graham. I did. And so I want to show you what happened, and then we'll hear if Paul was satisfied. Another great guy in this space, Paul Thorp, who has his own independent broadcast, and you know he likes you, Mike, but he messaged me when I was saying I'm going to be speaking to you, saying you're a very likable guy, but you lost a lot of respect when you threw Tommy Robinson under a bus. Given recent events, would you like to apologise to Tommy and accept that he's a decent guy and a patriot and not a far-right racist? Up to you, brother.
Yeah. I mean, I think Tommy Robinson's probably going to be okay without my endorsement.
I'd like to host
you know.
that.
Okay. He's got a very big following. Part of me, I get this a lot. He and I have been going at each other. He said it as well. Why don't you debate me? I don't debate about what exactly? A lot of names too. You know, because you know we're not actually that far apart on some of the things that we apologise to him. I think he's quite happily
would you
nasty kind of figure, if you like, in the way that he goes about doing things.
So is it more the tone of Tommy rather than what he has to say that upsets you?
I think so.
Paul, I asked the question, were you happy with Mike Graham's response?
I'll be honest with you, Dan. I was very disappointed, and I'll tell you why. I mean, there's a few points here, isn't there? First of all, you know, Mike spoke about this being his shtick, you know, the way he reacts to people, etc. That doesn't excuse lies and libel, I'm afraid. You know, he's very clearly said a lot of very damaging things about Tommy in the past that are simply not true. Whether you like Tommy or whether you don't, they are not true. And because Mike is still a likeable sort of character, he's like that chubby lad at school that you just can't help but laugh with and like. He refused to hold his hands up and apologise for saying any of those things. Now, look, at the end of the day, he now knows what it feels like to be unfairly demonised. Hence, I'm afraid I still haven't got a lot of sympathy for him. And I just felt that this was the chance for him to man up a little bit, to own up, and instead of doubling down on Tommy, saying he can get by without my endorsement. Well, look, Tommy never needed or ever sought Mike's endorsement. All he wanted was the truth. And he also said, oh, you know, why should I debate Tommy? Saying, what is there for me to debate Tommy with? What should I debate him about? You know, well, come on, really, Mike? Come on, mate. You know, don't insult our intelligence. You're bigger than that. And for me, Dan, if Mike wants to restore his credibility in its entirety, the best way to do that will be to get his ass back on your show with Tommy, which is, without brown nosing, yours is now the biggest, the best show in this space. Get the two of them together. Anyone watching this right now, put it in the comments. Do you agree with me? Get Tommy and Mike Graham on this show, Dan to be the host, and they can sort it out man to man and put the record straight.
100%. I'm desperate to host it. I think we need to do that much more in this space, Paul. And it's really interesting because there's been a huge response to the Mike Graham interview, and it has been mixed. And, you know, I'm really honest about this, right? So some people have said to me, absolutely brilliant. You know, we love Dan. It's great that you're supporting him. And then I think, well, actually, yes, I am in lots of ways, but I also asked him a lot of tough questions, and I'll show you how I actually put what Tommy Robinson had said about him directly. You know, you don't see many people doing that. I challenged him, for example, on the fact that he doesn't believe in the great replacement theory, which I think is not a theory, it is a fact. So there was that side of the argument. Then there are the other people who say, well, no, Dan, you shouldn't have had Mike on at all. You know, I can't believe that you're helping him. And again, I do struggle with that, Paul, because personally, I think what we don't live in a world of total moral purity. We're in this independent space. We are only ever going to speak to people who we 100% agree with. I think that's one of the huge issues with Reform UK, right? Like, they made a choice with this show. Once I said, what you did to Rupert Lowe was disgusting, right? So you've reported Rupert Lowe to the police, and I don't trust Zia Youssef as far as I can throw him. You know, I think he is an Islamist who has never been honest about why he was able to enter this political realm so quickly. But as soon as I said that, Paul, they decide, well, Outspoken is not a place for us. You know, Dan is now the enemy. Well, again, you're not my enemy. Reform UK, you are not my enemy. You can say that I'm your enemy, but that's nuts. You know, the enemy is Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana, Slippery Starmer, Shabana Mahmood, the tit whisperer, Zach Polanski. Need I go on? They are our enemies. So I want to try and be able to bring people together here, and also accept that we're not always going to 100% agree, right, on everything. But we broadly should be in the same place, which is supporting free speech, concerned about the Islamic threat, etc., etc. So it's been interesting to me to see the reaction from a lot of my contemporaries. And by the way, I respect people who are having a go at me. I love it. You know, the ones who are messaging me privately, I say, look, it's great. I want to have this discussion. But I think, you know, we can't be so morally puritanical. And I don't actually even think when it comes to Tommy, but you tell me, he would want that. You know, I don't think Tommy would say, oh, well, Dan, you shouldn't speak to Mike Graham because Mike Graham's been rude to me. No, as you say, it's about the truth, and it's about having these discussions and sort of saying, Mike, what did you mean by this?
Yeah, very much so, Dan, and I agree entirely. I mean, well, let's put it to the test, Dan. I'm sure that if Tommy and Mike Graham was on your show tomorrow, I'm sure that'll be one of the biggest audiences, live audiences of all time.
Yes, it would. And you could see Mike was sort of wavering, wasn't he?
Well, you know, I'm not sure that Mike has the backbone for it, to be honest, but we'll see. Look, I can't speak for Tommy. What I can say is this: knowing him as I do, I think that Tommy would not want to take his voice away. Most definitely not. And I also believe that Tommy would be the bigger man, in the respect that if he was proven wrong over time, he would apologise. I've seen him do it before, and I'm sure we'll see him do it again. As I said, look, I can only say what I've already said, Dan. I like Mike Graham as a presenter. He is an entertainer, and that makes him good at what he does. Do I respect him as a man? I'm afraid at the moment the answer to that is the jury is out. You know, we have to. Mike's got a bit of making up to do as far as being, you know, playing a fair bat, as it were. And it's time he either owned up with Tommy and just said, look, you know what, Tommy, mate, I got it wrong. You know, you understand, it was my job. I'm working for the mainstream media. It's part of what I have to do. Forgive me. You know, I think Tommy would shake his hand. As I say,
I think he would too.
I think he would.
He wants there to be a reckoning with people like Julia Hartley-Brewer and Camilla Tominay, you know, but it's not that he's saying, I don't want to have anything to do with you ever. I would say, Paul, and remember, I operated in very similar spaces. You know, for me, no one will ever find footage of me slagging Tommy Robinson off in the past. So I don't think your bosses ever force you to slag him off. What they do is they ban discussion of him altogether. And that's what I've been very honest about. So the people who are choosing to go one step further, like that revolting Camilla Tominay, on the Daily Telegraph saying that he's a white supremacist on woke ITVs this morning when Tommy was in jail and couldn't fight back. That is on her. That is not on her bosses. But certainly when I was at GB News, and there would be a lot of demand from the viewers for me to speak about Tommy and get Tommy on, and I understand it, right? And I was obviously in private communication with Tommy, but the bosses simply wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't allow Father Calvin to do it. They wouldn't allow Lawrence Fox to do it. Now, obviously, I hoped that I was going to be able to shift the Overton window at GB News, and I think I did in a lot of ways, but no, not on Tommy. That was like a no-go zone. So it obviously took me being independent to be able to do what I wanted to do, and I've been honest about that, but I've also been honest about the fact that Tommy Robinson was one of the people who supported me most when I was cancelled by GB News, and that's really interesting to me because it would have been so easy for him to say, "Oh, Dan, now you're getting a piece of my medicine." Yeah. And he never, ever did that. He was absolutely there for me right from the moment that I was cancelled. And personally, I'll never forget that loyalty. By the way, if you do want to watch the full Mike Graham interview, of course, you can sign up to my Substack, www.outspoken.live. But I do just want to show you Paul, because as I say, I did play, and this is when people are criticizing me, I absolutely put all points of view to Mike, but I thought the most important thing is actually he got to hear Tommy himself criticize Mike. And it was quite awkward because what Tommy was saying was very full on. But anyway, I just want to show you what went down and then I'll get your reaction. But first, as we get older, you notice it. After a cold day, hard workout, even a long week, recovery just isn't as quick as it used to be, right? That bounce back factor matters. And it turns out the secret isn't luck, it's stem cells, your body's built-in repair crew. With age, that system slows down. Fewer cells, weaker signals, slower recovery. That's exactly why Qualia created Qualia Stem Cell. Think of it this way. Your cells are powerful. Qualia Stem Cell helps keep them that way. It's crafted with nature's heavy lifters, sea buckthorn, royal jelly, and more to support your body's natural repair system so you can keep moving, healing, and thriving. You don't have to accept slowing down. This is about supporting better aging by reactivating the systems that help you bounce back. And it's refreshingly simple. You take it just 4 days a month. So if you've ever felt like your body just doesn't bounce back like it used to, whether it's after a tough workout, getting sick, or just the wear and tear of life, this is for you. Qualia Stem Cell was designed to support your body's natural repair systems, helping you heal, recover, and keep going strong. And right now, you can try it for up to 50% off at qualialife.com/Dan. And here's a bonus. Use the code Dan for an additional 15% off your order. So that's QUALIA life.com/Dan. Your body's built to repair itself. Qualia just helps it do it that better. And a big thanks, by the way, to Qualia for sponsoring this episode of Outspoken. But now, back to the show.
When we first kind of locked horns, he was, perhaps a very different individual, but he was threatening to come to the office and, find me and bring a load of, there was a time when he used to go around, with his followers.
Well, there were protests even quite recently outside the Talk offices.
Oh, were there? Well,
but that was in regards to something that Piers Morgan and Peter Cardwell had said.
Oh, okay. There was a time when he used to kind of, if he didn't like a particular journalist, he would go after them, in a way which I always thought was a little bit beyond the pale, which was kind of why I saw him in that light. And I think perhaps he's maybe modified his behaviour since then, and he's become a slightly more, what you might call, respectable figure, because he's realised that actually behaving like a thug isn't really the way to go. But there was a time when he did. And so I don't think I need to apologise to him,
So you thought some of his behaviour towards you was thuggish?
Yeah.
And that's what you didn't like?
That was where it all started, really,
He responded to your well, whatever it was.
I mean, he tweets about me
responded to you being taken off air. What was interesting, his first response, I guess, got a little bit of backlash because some people said, look, you shouldn't celebrate someone taking his job. He then explained, this was all public, this was on X, and I played it on the show, but I think it's only fair now that you're here that you can actually respond, because he made some specific, I'm not going to say that allegations, but claims that you were not taking a sexual abuse case seriously enough. This is what he had to say. Watch this.
Hold on, Mike. What's going on? For years, you've condemned me as a racist, and you just lost your job.
Who's that?
Mike, you know, some fat dude who does talk radio, talk TV. For years, all he ever does is use his platform, and every time he talks about me, he condemns me as that far-right racist. He's got drunk and he's got pissed up, posted loads of racist stuff. His true feelings come out. You were masking, you were fucking... It's brilliant.
Good, he's got time to exercise now.
Do you want a job with us, Mike? Nah, mate, don't employ racists. Let me just give you some context for why I'm laughing. A few years ago, there was a sexual assault at Center Parcs. I was on holiday at Center Parcs. And that sexual assault was against a child that's close to me. What Mike did at that time, so a sexual assault against a child close to me, Mike used his platform to belittle it, to mock it, and to say that it was fabricated and that the child was lying in order to promote my racist agenda. That's what Mike did. So of course, I'm very angry with Mike. I think it's outrageous behaviour. I think it's immoral behaviour. I think he's a scumbag. That's what I think, yeah? So, if you see me laughing, I wouldn't usually laugh at someone losing their job. I wouldn't usually laugh at... I don't believe in cancel culture, but Mike's an arsehole, yeah?
See, for me, Mike, this is such a shame. And I'll tell you
By
why
the way,
it's such a shame.
just before we comment on that,
Yes.
the incident, I believe, that he's talking about at Center Parcs resulted in him being arrested for attacking someone. That's actually what happened. And that was the context for me to say, because he was basically saying...
So you don't feel that you were belittling...
Not at all. No, the reason that he said that he assaulted this guy was because there was a sexual assault on a child. And that was his excuse for beating the guy up. That's what my recollection is.
I guess what I think is such a shame is that I think you're both brilliant people and you're both going to be incredibly important in what is going to be, honestly, a fight to save this country.
Yeah.
And can you understand that people sometimes think, well, why are you turning your fire on Tommy Robinson? I understand he's also turning his fire on you when... Look at who's running the show. You know, look at Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn's mob. Yeah. Look at the tit whisperer, Zach Polanski.
Oh my God!
Like,
I mean, where does that guy come from?
I know. But do you know what I mean? Like, do you think now that you're in this independent space, there is potentially the possibility of at least putting some of that acrimony behind you?
Listen, I'm all for peacemaking at times, you know, but I also think we should all be grown up enough to understand that, you know, we don't all have to agree on everything. I mean, he's just called me an arsehole and a scumbag 2 or 3 times, and apparently I was supposed to apologise to him. I wouldn't ask him to apologise for that. You know, let him carry on. It's part of his shtick. That's fine. You know, I'll do me. He can do him.
Paul Thorp, your reaction. I mean, I guess the thing that maybe Tommy Robinson supporters are most angry about was Mike's use of the word thug, although he did make the point that Tommy has changed.
Yeah, I mean, look, Danny, thug and racist are the 2 terms that would upset most of us. And I think, you know, Mike is being very economical with the facts there. Most people watching this will know exactly who was allegedly assaulted at that park that we're talking about in that incident. Yes, Tommy was arrested for allegedly assaulting someone who had allegedly attacked someone very, very, very close to Tommy himself. And I would imagine that most people, given his position that day, would have probably done the same thing. I know that I would have. So Mike knows those facts. So I think he's being a little bit disingenuous the way he described the incident. But look, I think he just needs to man up a little bit and just say, look, you know what? okay, I've said some things about Tommy. Tommy said some things about me. I was wrong about him being a racist. You know, the stuff about the thug, about threatening to come to my office. No. It's okay for journalists to target. We have a case with Tommy going on like this right now. It's okay for journalists to go and attack Tommy, to go to his front door, to doorstep his children, to dox his family, to put his life in danger. But as soon as he goes to try and ask them a question, he's a thug. I'm sorry, the public just won't buy that.
Very well said. Paul Thorp, who, of course, is one of our superstars of the independent media. I describe you, Paul, as the real People's Channel because, you know, GB News tries to claim the other People's Channel. But, you know, I say Paul Thorp is the real People's Channel. And, of course, you must subscribe on YouTube under Paul Thorp Official. But I love having you on Outspoken, Paul. Please do come back soon. Thank you, Paul.
God bless you all.
Thank you. And we're about to reveal today's great, well, it's not today's greatest Britain Union Jackass, it's that Friday, which means it is the worst Britain in the world this week when we put our Union Jackasses from across the week and reveal who has taken the prize. It's an infamous prize, isn't it, to be named the worst Britain in the world this week? Just a reminder of your nominees. Monday was Narinder Kaur, Tuesday Ed Davey, Wednesday Shabana Mahmood, Thursday Chris Packham. Let's get to some of your feedback. Eddie Burns says this Narinder is up there. She'll always get my vote. She hates this country and the people who don't dance to her tune but calls everyone else racist. Debatable 1984 says Narinder Kaur is by far the most insufferable woman in the UK. Not the most dangerous, but definitely one of the most annoying. I was severely disappointed today learning that she lied about moving to India if reform wins. She isn't. She loves the attention and freedom of the UK too much. Horrible woman. But Sav5768 says, Shabana, we have seen all this before. A few years ago, Suella Braverman filled the media with all kinds of tough talk and promises to stop the boats. How many boats did she actually stop? None. That's true, but I wouldn't argue it was her fault, by the way. She was very much stopped by Sunak. Mark Chambers said Shabana Mahmood because I don't believe a word that comes out of her mouth. Smoke and mirrors. She loves Islam, like she said in her interview. Islam is her life. Britain for British, run by British people. Okay, let me get to these results. In fourth position with 6% of your vote, Chris Packham. In third position with 15% of your vote, Ed Davey. The runner-up with 28% of the vote, Narinder Kaur. But the worst Britain in the world this week, by majority with 51% of your vote, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood.